Pikmin is well known for its large variety of enemies, each with differing appearances, strategies to defeat them, and their own abilities. And with all these vastly different enemies, it's natural that some of them wouldn't be as good as others. Today I'm going to be talking about enemies that were severely underpowered that really didn't have a reason to be underpowered. Before I begin, I want to quickly clarify what I mean by underpowered. Underpowered enemies aren't simply just weak enemies. For example, the Dwarf Bulborbs are weak enemies, but they aren't exactly underpowered. While they do have low HP and die quickly, they are meant to be early game enemies that ease new players into the series, so it wouldn't make sense for them to have like 9,000 hit points. Underpowered enemies are weak enemies that really don't have a good reason to be weak, either in their positioning in the game or design. Starting off with Pikmin 1, and I kinda had a hard time finding underpowered enemies for this game. This is probably due to every enemy in Pikmin 1 being bulky as shit. It's obscene how much HP some of these guys have, and not to mention some of them go invincible while attacking you. There's very few enemies that are actually weak, and let alone enemies that are underpowered, but I think I was able to find one. The Puffstool. Now, considering that the Puffstool is classified as a boss fight, you would think it would be stronger than most enemies, but you'd be incorrect. When you find him at first, he doesn't even start attacking you. You have to hit him first, which causes him to trip over. When he trips over, you have about 3 to 5 business days to kick his shit in, and then he dies. You are given such an asinine amount of time to attack this guy, it's basically a guaranteed one cycle even without reds. He does have one attack where he sprays fumes and turns your Pikmin into Puffmin, but you are given such a large amount of time to react to this where it isn't even a cause of concern. Overall, the Puffstool falls pretty short and is a complete opposite to every other boss in the game. Every other boss in this game is extremely hostile and requires pinpoint accuracy and reactions, but this guy just loafs around and hopes you'll fight beady longlegs instead. A base HP of 2,500 does seem respectable, but it doesn't matter because he's getting obliterated in one cycle anyways. The only really redeeming quality is that if you do somehow manage to get hit by the attack, then you're pretty fucked. It's hard to get your Pikmin back to Puffmin and they're basically just guaranteed to be dead. I feel like a bit more bulk and having him be much more hostile would make this fight a lot better. Now, moving on from Pikmin 1, Pikmin 2 is pretty infamous for having some of the most strongest and broken enemies, and some of the not so strongest and broken enemies. A lot of enemies were nerfed from Pikmin 1, and purple Pikmin are an answer to everything in this game, so it is natural that some enemies would fall behind. I'm going to start off with the enemy that inspired me to make this video in the first place, the hairy Bulborb. This enemy is quite baffling. It's usually the last type of Bulborb you'll find, and its design showcases a large head of hair, so you'd think that this would make it more bulky, right? It has the lowest amount of HP from any Bulborb, and probably one of the lowest HPs in the game at 650. To put that into perspective, the red Bulborb, which appears 12 minutes into the game, has 100 more HP at 750. And it's even worse when compared to fellow late game Bulborbs like the Fiery Bulblacks, which has over twice the amount of hit points. Pikmin 2 also has a mechanic called regeneration, where enemies will heal every second by a small amount. Guess who doesn't have this? This god-awful HP means it has a hard time coping with red Pikmin, let alone purples. For some reason this Bulborb has the exclusive mechanic of if it's being attacked, it will always bite if there's Pikmin in its line of sight instead of shaking. This could be a potentially threatening mechanic, but it just dies immediately anyways, and most people don't even notice it. Now I actually do have a theory on why this enemy is so weak. In the game files, the hairy Bulborb and the orange Bulborb are referred to as the yellow Bulborb and the blue Bulborb. And if you actually look at pre-release screenshots, you can see this yellow Bulborb at a much earlier point of the game compared to where the hairy Bulborb is. And if you take a look at the HP stats, it scales from the hairy Bulborb at 650, the red at 750, and the orange at 850. So my guess is that the Bulborb progression was going to go from yellow, red to blue, but then these enemies got reworked and removed throughout the game and they never adjusted their stats. This won't be the first time that this happened either. The Fiery Bulblacks has data in the game that suggests it's meant to be a boss, and it still has a grisly HP of fucking 1,400, which is more than the Emperor Bulblacks. Anyways, speaking of the Emperor Bulblacks, he's usually one of the first enemies that comes up when you bring up underpowered enemies. A lot of people talk about the Emperor Bulblacks, but I feel like they ignore a boss that got it much worse in this game. The beady longlegs. Now, I'm not trying to say the Emperor Bulblacks isn't underpowered, I mean, look at him.
What's going on, big guy?
However, if you take a look at the refights, things get a bit more interesting. The first fight is... but the second and third fight actually up the ante a bit. The second fight is in an arena covered with water, so you have to fight 3 of them with a limited selection of blue Pikmin. And the third and final fight is just fucking cruel. It looks normal at first, but then Metites come out, wake up the Bulblaxes and put all your Pikmin in a panic, and you have no time to get them out of there, so they're just dead. Both fights make use of fighting the Bulblaxes at a disadvantage, which is where it shines best. Seriously, if they made this thing invincible during its opening animation, then it would have been a good fight, that's all they had to do. The BD Longlegs, however, only has 2 fights. The first one, it gets absolutely shit on by yellow Pikmin. And in the second one, all that changes is that there's water, which just makes the fight last longer, it doesn't even make it harder. There is technically another fight in the perplexing pool, but you have to wait till day 30, and it's basically the exact same as the first fight. Not to mention it's a complete joke compared to Pikmin 1. The BD Longlegs in Pikmin 1 was fast, unpredictable, and very volatile, which kept you on your toes. The one in Pikmin 2 just looks like it's going through the motions, it moves so slowly. Not to mention its health went from 5,000 from Pikmin 1, one of the highest in the game, all the way down to 1,300. Same as the Bulblax. Overall, there's just a complete joke in this game, and pretty underutilized too, considering other early weak game bosses like the Burrowing Snagret got to be used a total of 9 times throughout the game. Continuing the theme of spiders, we have the Dweevils. All these guys are pretty underpowered except for the Titan and Volatile Dweevil, these guys get a pass. Every single one of these guys has a HP of 350. A single purple Pikmin Slam deals 50 damage, so only 5 purple Pikmin Slams and they're gone. If you played Pikmin 2, you might also be aware that purple Pikmin have a chance to stun enemies, and this chance is usually 10% per throw. But there are some exceptions to this rule, and the exceptions usually decrease the chance. The Dweevils, however, don't decrease the chance to get stunned, they actually increase to 100%. So if you throw a purple Pikmin anywhere near them, it's a guaranteed stun for 5 seconds. They're also docile enemies, so they'll only attack you if you attack them. And considering the only thing they can do is attack and steal treasures, you can basically ignore them if they steal the wrong thing. If they do get in the mood to attack you though, it's an elemental attack, which means it's just immediately dealt with by pressing the B button. The Anno Dweevil, however, does have an electric attack, which sometimes can be scary. Pikmin 3. Need I say more? For all 3 people living under a rock, Pikmin. This game is pretty infamous for nerfing every enemy to absolute shit. I'm not going to go into as much detail with these enemies because all of these can be summarized by basically just saying, press charge and you win. Red and orange Bulborbs. These guys go from being the Goombas of the Pikmin franchise because they're the most recognizable enemy, to literally being the Goombas of the Pikmin franchise. In this game, they die from 30 Pikmin, even on the hardest difficulty. The Wallyhop, one of the most feared enemies in the franchise, isn't feared by anyone now. It gets hard countered by rock Pikmin, has no bulk like the first 2 games, and has a limit to how much Pikmin it can crush at once. The Pyroclasmic Slooch. These guys are intended to be killed by red Pikmin, which they do pretty good at, but rock Pikmin do even better and kill them in like 6 throws. The Spuddlefish. Now this enemy seems very scary. It's late in the game, and it has 2 attacks. It can spread ink and stab Pikmin, so it has a very good potential combo of spreading ink and then stabbing all the blue Pikmin and eating them quickly. Now this would be a very 300 HP. There's probably a lot more enemies I could mention, but they all basically go the same. Just press X, charge them, and they're dead. Alright, finally we have Pikmin 4, and this may be because I'm less experienced with this game because it's only about 2 months old, but I feel like they balance out the enemies pretty good here. Or maybe they just all equally died to Ochi as quickly, I'm not sure. There are still a few underpowered enemies, starting with the Sun Squish and the Prickle Puff, and these guys follow the same problem. I feel like their HP is decent enough because they're meant to be weaker enemies, but they just take way too long to kill Pikmin, to the point where like it's impossible not to kill them before they kill your Pikmin. The Burrowing Snagret. It always takes a long time to get out of the ground, and that's just a guaranteed Ochi Rush, which is basically just a 1 cycle. And there also isn't a pileated Snagret to even things out in this game. And you know what, let's end things off where we started, the Puffstool. Can't even kill Pikmin in this game, because they removed Puffmin. It's literally just atmospheric decoration at this point. Yeah, that's basically the majority of underpowered enemies in the Pikmin franchise. I could talk about Hey Pikmin, but I haven't beaten it, and I really doubt anyone cares that the Fire Flinger Groink wasn't living up to fan expectations on HP values. If you think I left out any other interesting underpowered enemies, then leave a comment down below and tell me what you think should have been on here, and also make sure to smash that subscribe button or Pikmin 6 won't come out.